Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Padajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar to the Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. According to my records, we're on text 33 of chapter 10. On page 451. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 28th day of August, 2024 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 10, the Opulence of the Absolute, text number 33. Aksharanam Akaro Asmi Dvandvaha Samasikasya cha Aham Evakshayach Kalo Dhataham Vishvato Mukha Aksharanam Akarosmi Dvandva Samasikasya cha Ahame Vakshaya Kalo Dhataham Vishvato Mukha. Okay. Aksharanam Akarosmi Dvandva Samasikasya cha Ahame Vakshaya Kalo Dhataham Vishvato Mukha. Aksharanam Akarosmi Dvandva Samasikasya cha Ahame Vakshaya Kalo Dhataham Vishvato Mukha. Go ahead, Chad. Aksharanam Akarosmi Dvandva Samasikasya cha Ahame Vakshaya Kalo Dhataham Vishvato Mukha. Do you want to try it, people? No. Ladies? Aksharanam Akarosmi Dvandva Samasikasya cha Ahame Vakshaya Kalo Dhataham Vishvato Mukha. Aksharanam Akarosmi Dvandva Samasikasya cha Ahame Vakshaya Kalo Dhataham Vishvato Mukha. Anyone online?
Aksharanam Akarosmi
Aksharanam Akarosmi
Dvandva Samasikasya cha
Dvandva Samasikasya cha
Aham eva Kshayo Kalo
Ahame Vakshaya Kalo
Dhataham Vishvato Mukha.
Dhataham Vishvato Mukha. Aksharanam of letters. Akaraha, the first letter. Asmi, I am. Dvandvaha, the dual. Samasikasya, of compounds. Cha, and aham, I am. Eva, certainly. Akshayaha, eternal. Kalaha, time. Dhata, the creator. Aham, I am. Vishvataha, Mukha, Brahma. Translation, Krishna says, of letters, I am the letter A, and among compound words, I am the dual compound. I am also inexhaustible time, and of creators, I am Brahma. Purport. Akara, the first letter of the Sanskrit alphabet, is the beginning of the Vedic literature. Without akara, nothing can be sounded. Therefore, it is the beginning of sound. In Sanskrit, there are also many compound words, of which the dual word, like Ramakrishna, is called dvandva. In this compound, the words Rama and Krishna have the same form, and therefore the compound is called dual. Among all kinds of killers, time is the ultimate because time kills everything. Time is the representative of Krishna because in due course of time there will be a great fire and everything will be annihilated. Among the living entities who are creators, Brahma, who has 4 heads, is the chief. Therefore, he is a representative of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parambara. So, Krishna is the letter A. And that letter A, as Prabhupada points out, is essential. He says it's the beginning of all the Vedic literature. And if you notice every verse, there are a lot of A's, some long, some short. And in Sanskrit, I'm just looking at some examples here. If you go to the previous verse, text 32, and look in the actual Sanskrit, the Devanagari, that first letter there is an S. And the next one is a G. And the little curly thing on top is an R. And that the A, the short A in Sarganam, is understood. In other words, if there's no other vowel that's given and it has between 2 consonants, then it's understood to be an A. It's the most common letter. And then, but if you have a long A, then it has to be drawn in the Devanagari. So this is, you learn, when you learn Devanagari, which I haven't really done, but I know a little bit, you have to learn how to put in those A's if you have 2 consonants in a row. It's understood like that. So Krishna says, I am that letter A. There's a nice verse where Rupa Goswami is describing, the first words of the translation are, I don't know how much nectar these 2 syllables, Kṛṣṇa, have produced. And then he goes on, Tunde Tandavanidating Vatanute Tundavali Labdehe Karna Kroda Katam Manigatayate Karna Bude Vyakspiham Shetak Prangana Sangini Vijayate Sarvendriyanam Kutim No Jane Janitaki Yadvidamitai Krishneti Varnadvahi. Now the word Varna means a syllable. A syllable in Sanskrit and in English is a collection of letters that have 1 vowel sound in it, you see. And so the Sanskrit, as in English, is a collection of syllables that are long or short, or in Sanskrit called heavy or light. And if you know, I was fortunate as a child to learn musical notation. I don't know if they do that anymore in schools in America. Glee club, and they give you a chance to learn an instrument. I was in grade school in the 50s. I think budgets have got tighter. Anyway, I noticed when I was in Miami, and that a lot of the devotees had come up from South America. A lot of them from Brazil, and so they were there, and they somehow got visas or something, and but there were a fairly large number of them that were tone deaf, in the kirtans, indicating that they hadn't been trained, they hadn't been taught music at all, and there's no training like that. Whereas in the United States, this is one of the things that helped to supercharge the movement when Prabhupada started, because he came in the mid ~60s, and a lot of the people who joined were early college freshmen, and so they'd been through the school, a lot of public school system, but suddenly you had a lot of devotees who could sing, they could keep a tune and everything. And so that was a very important element. You had good musicians joining, like Mukundam Maharaj was a professional, He had a professional musician joining, and he had a professional English teacher to edit the books, all there from the little corner of New York that he settled in 22nd Avenue. So Krishna provided him that. So anyway, back to our verse here. Aksharam, so just letters. So the A letter is the most common, so this is a great way to remember Krishna. Whenever you see A's in any verse, and there's always a bunch of A's, you can remember Krishna. The dvandva, there's different kinds of compounds. Vishvatomukha, okay, it's a compound. See there, the last verse of the last words of the verse, Vishvatomukha. So what you have is Vishvata is the creator, means, and Mukha means the first, means the foremost. So of creators I am Brahma. So it's understood all of these are the foremost in their category. So that means the first of the creators. But when you have a dual compound, they have equal weight. And he gave the example of Krishna Balaram. So it just means Krishna and Balaram together. You know, Krishna Balaram deities. So, you know, they're together on the altar. So that's the different kinds of compound words. Now there's 3 verses. This is one of them, describing how Krishna says, I am time. The most famous is in the 11th chapter, where, you know, the universal form manifests. Arjuna wants to see it, and Krishna grants him that vision. And then he sees a little bit into the future what's going to happen. The battle hasn't begun yet. This is all before the battle. And Krishna asks that to see that universal form, and Prabhupada makes it very clear that he's not asking for himself, but he's asking for anyone in the future who claims to be Krishna. Then you can ask him, well, let's see a universal form. And you know what it's supposed to look like, huge, you know, and covering the sky, and swallowing all the living entities, you know, on the battlefield. So of course no one can show that form but Krishna. So this is a way of debunking the claims that they're God. But Arjuna is scared. You know, this is not the Krishna that he's the friend with. This is another manifestation. So he says, "Who are you? Who are you?" You know. And so he famously answers, and this is in the movie, I'm sure, Oppenheimer, because he knew the Bhagavad Gita. And when the first bomb went off, he chanted this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Kalosmi loka, I don't know the whole thing, but the first line is enough. Kalosmi loka kshayakrit pabidho. Time I am. I've come to destroy everything, you know. And that's the first mention, I think, in the Bhagavad Gita. But here we have another mention of Krishna says, I am time, aham ebakshaya kalo, I am eternal time. So time, as long as there's a creation, as long as there's a material world, there will be the element of time. In the spiritual world, time is, as Prabhupada would love to say, conspicuous by its absence. There's no passage of time. And there's a verse in the Brahma Samhita which very dramatically says that. It's amazing. The Brahma Samhita has like 70 verses, but many of them have one number, but there's actually 2 verses. So these 2 long verses, given one number, which near the end of the book, which describe Goloka Vrindavan. And famously, you know, it says, Shriya Kanta Kantak Padamapurusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumish Chindamanaganamahi Toyamamatam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Pivangshi Priyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Padamabitadasvajamapicha. So this is in a meter called Shikarini. Prabhupada describes when it first occurs in Anchu 1, there's a lot of verses from the Vidagdamadhava and a fair number of them in this meter. And he points, so this is in the meter called Shikarini, which is a combination of yogurt and sugar candy. That's what Shikarini means. And the word Shikarini, it's interesting, the name of the meter fits into the meter. So Shikirani, it's actually Shikirani. And Sriya Kanta Padama Purusha Kalpatadavo. Shikirani. See at the end of it. Anyway, this was a little note. So in the second of the verses describing the Goloka Vrindavan, says like this: Sayatra chirabdi surabdi surabibhyasti sumahan nimeshadakyova vachiti nihiyatra pisamayak. So he's describing there, the milk is plentiful. There's all these Surabi cows, and they're so blissful that their udders are always full, and they're pouring milk on the ground. Chirabdi, there's like an ocean of milk, a chira. Surabdi is flowing. Surabdi surabibhyak sumahan. And then nime sharda, even a half of a moment, it does not pass away there. Everything is the eternal present. Meaning, what's the evidence of time? Change. But there's no change. Nobody gets older there. You know, there's just a variety of new things that happen, but nothing passes away. It's an eternal realm. So there, as Prabhupada would say, time is very conspicuous by its absence. But here, time is the eternal time, moving everything along to destruction. And Kalosmi, time I am, the destroyer of the worlds. And then he says, Kala Kalayatam Aham, of punishers, I am time. He says elsewhere, maybe in this chapter or maybe chapter 9, I forget. But so 3 places he says I'm time. So when do we not, anytime you look at your watch or you say, oh, am I late? Oh, time. And you think of Krishna. That's the whole idea. Okay, should we go on? Okay, here's a very famous one now. Text 34. Mrityu sabharaschaham udbhavascha bhavishitam kirti shri vakshanadinam smitir medhan dvitichama. I am all-devouring death, and I am the generating principle of all that is yet to be. Udbhavascha bhavishitam. Among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. Now, these are all personified qualities. It's not that women, they have fame and fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. They may have those things. But each one of these is just like you have famously Saraswati. She's the goddess of learning. She's very wise and like that. So these are literally names of personified qualities. Fame personified, fortune personified, all in a feminine form. Purport: as soon as a man is born, he dies at every moment. That's the mrityu part. Thus death is devouring every living entity at every moment. But the last stroke is called death itself. That death is Krishna. As for future development, all living entities undergo 6 basic changes. They are born, they grow, they remain for some time, they reproduce, they dwindle, and finally they vanish. Of these changes, the first is deliverance from the womb, and that is Krishna. The first generation is the beginning of all future activities. Okay. The 7 opulences listed: fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience are considered feminine. If a person possesses all of them or some of them, he becomes glorious. If a man is famous as a righteous man, that makes him glorious. Sanskrit is a perfect language and is therefore very glorious. If after studying one can remember a subject matter, he is gifted with a good memory or smriti. And the ability not only to read many books on different subject matters, but to understand them and apply them when necessary is intelligence, medha, another opulence. The ability to overcome unsteadiness is called firmness or steadfastness, driti. And when one is fully qualified, yet is humble and gentle, and when one is able to keep his balance both in sorrow and in ecstasy of joy, he has the opulence called patience or kshama. So these qualities, these Sanskrit words also have multiple meanings. Like the word kshama also means forgiveness. It means a quality of forgiveness. It's kind of a subcategory of tolerance. If someone insults you, you don't fly off the handle, do it, Hare Krishna, good. So that Shema is an important quality to have, because otherwise you can get into real serious arguments. You can hold a grudge, all of that business. That's devotees don't have that. So this is a very and this purport and translation to some degree underwent some serious revision. The first editor really made some serious mistakes. So if you happen to read an old Gita, called the Macmillan Gita, with the distinctive cover they usually put on there, this verse and purport will be quite different. Okay. Brihat Sama Tata Samnam All right, but wait a minute, I forgot. I wanted to mention one thing. Prabhupada would often quote the first, what is called pada. A pada means a quarter of a verse. This mrityu sarvaharas chaham. And he would quote that as a way of explaining how the atheists who don't believe in God, they meet God finally as death. He takes everything away. He takes everything you have. Because, you know, you may have $100,000 in the bank, but it's got your name on the account. And that name isn't your name, it's the name of your body. When the body dies, then the money stays in the bank, it gets claimed, if you know, your heirs get it, whatever. So, but you lose it. And the point is, you want to have as few things as possible that you're considering necessary and that, you know, you need. And with the concept, everything belongs to Krishna. So if you lose something, oh, you know, it was Krishna's anyway. But ideally, anything valuable that you get, you should be used in the service of Krishna. What is that? That's the very first mantra of the Ishopanishad. Isha bhashamidam sarvam yat kinchit jagatyam nigat tena tyaktena bundida magvidha kasya swidhanam. So that everything is owned and controlled by the Isha, the God himself, the Supreme Lord. Sarvam yat kinchit jagat, whatever there is in the universe, jagatyam jagat. Tena tyaktena bundita. One can employ those things, what you need in order to survive, your quota, you know. But you shouldn't be, then the word magvidha, the word greed is in there. But don't be greedy for more than you need, you know. That's one of the gates to hell, Krishna says in the 16th chapter. Lust, anger, and greed. Tribadham narakastedam dwaram nashanam atmana kama krodha tata lobas tasmadita trayam jajet. There are 3 gates leading to this hell that he just described, 16th chapter. Yeah, he's describing it. Lust, anger, and greed. A wise person gives them up. And one who can, he says in the next verse, can go to the supreme abode. But, last 2 verses of the 16th chapter is worth meditating on. Yak Shastra Vidamutsuja, he introduces this idea of Shastra. Shastra is the word of God. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. That's real Shastra, what God speaks. And but and it has vidhis. Vidhis are the rules and regulations. You see? So Yak Shastra Vidim Utsrija, one who gives up the regulations of Shastra, vartate, and continue vartate kama karataha, to act according to his whims, to kama, to his material desire. Nasa siddhim avapnoti, nasukam napadam gatim. Such a person cannot attain perfection, nor happiness, nor the supreme abode. And the last verse is a real clincher of that chapter. It's worth studying. Tasmat, therefore, tasmat shastram pramanam te karya devastito gyatva shastra vidhanoktam karma kartam miharasi. Therefore, one should accept as evidence. The word pramana is very important. What do we accept as evidence or authoritative instruction that can lead us in what to do and what not to do? There's always both what to do and what not to do. And it's Shastra. The very word Shastra has a root in Shas. I heard him probably talking about this on a tape. Every Sanskrit word has a root to it. Just like the word Dharma has the word Dri, which means to sustain. What sustains anything has its essential quality. Without that, it's not that thing. So what is our Dharma? Our Dharma is to serve. You see? If we're not serving Krishna, we're going to serve the body, we're going to serve the demands, we're going to serve something. But only the service to Krishna is ultimately all auspicious, because that is our real nature. So, the root of the word Shastra is the same as the root of the word Shastra. Notice how important these long and short A's are. I always bring up that. Shastra, as we know, is scripture. And why? And the root Shas means to control. So if one voluntarily agrees to be controlled by the words of Shastra, the revealed word of God, as given by a pure devotee, then the life becomes all auspicious. Because Krishna doesn't want to control us to exploit us. He wants us to voluntarily agree to be controlled because that's the best thing for us. He doesn't need our service. He's got millions of Lakshmi serving him. But we need to serve him, you see? So that's Shastra. Otherwise, Shastra. Shastra is a weapon. And Durga, she has so many weapons, 8 weapons, right? She has the trident, threefold miseries, and the sword, and many others. So with all of those, things, she can control us, and we feel pain, the pain of the passage of time, the threefold miseries, and all these things. So if we're not going to agree, voluntarily be controlled by Shastra, we'll be controlled by the Shastra of Mayadevi. Yeah? Isn't it nice? And the Shishya has the same root. Shishya means disciple. One who agrees to be controlled by the Guru and by the Shastra. So we want to be Shishyas for our ultimate good. Okay, so that's Mrityu Sarvadascharam. Now, what's happening with the Vedas? Brihat Samatata Samnam Gayatri Chandasamaham Masana Margashir Soham Mitunam Kusumakaraha. Of the hymns in the Sama Veda, I am the Brihat Sama, and of poetry, I am the Gayatri. Of months, I am Margashirsha, November, December, and of seasons, I am flower-bearing spring. Purport. It has already been explained by the Lord that amongst all the Vedas, he is the Sama Veda. The Sama Veda is rich with beautiful songs played by the various demigods. One of these songs is the Brihat Sama, which has an exquisite melody and is sung at midnight. In Sanskrit, there are definite rules that regulate poetry. Rhyme and meter are not written whimsically, as in much modern poetry. Prabhupada was not into free verse at all. That's why you'll find in my little efforts of poetry, there's always a beat, there's always trying to get the rhyme in there. Prabhupada also, he wrote some nice poems. Amongst the regulated poetry, the Gayatri Mantra, which is chanted by the duly qualified Brahmins, is the most prominent. The Gayatri Mantra is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because the Gayatri Mantra is especially meant for God realization, it represents the Supreme Lord. This mantra is meant for spiritually advanced people, and when one attains success in chanting it, he can enter into the transcendental position of the Lord. One must first acquire the qualities of the perfectly situated person, the qualities of goodness according to the laws of material nature, in order to chant the Gayatri Mantra. The Gayatri Mantra is very important in the Vedic civilization and is considered to be the sound incarnation of Brahman. Brahma is its initiator, and it is passed down from him in disciplic succession. Of course, Brahma received it from Krishna in the heart. The month, or I think through the flute, actually. The month of November-December is considered the best of all months because in India, grains are collected from the fields at this time, and the people become very happy. Of course, spring is a season universally liked because it is neither too hot nor too cold, and the flowers and trees blossom and flourish. In spring, there are also many ceremonies commemorating Krishna's pastimes. Therefore, this is considered to be the most joyful of all the seasons, and it is a representative of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So we're praying that the spring, of course, spring is long over, summer is almost over, that our little our big tree out here will finally blossom. It hasn't blossomed in 2 years, and someone's really not very much anyway. And Bhakta Joseph says, I think I've been given it enough water. It needs a lot of water on the root. And it's okay. But anyway, we have a lot of other flowering trees here, and to see the deities get their flowers. So here's we get a little insight into the poetry of the Gayatri. I'm really not at liberty to chant the Gayatri mantra for you. I'm not supposed to say it out loud. But it has a very lilting meter to it, and that's what it say. It has, I think it's amongst poetry, I am the Gayatri. So if you get initiated, Brahman initiated, then you'll get into the Gayatri. And morning, noon, and evening, you can chant that. Flower-bearing spring, and so many nice things here. All right, we have a little more time. Dyutam chalayatam asmi tejas vinamaham Jayosmi Vivasayosmi Sattvam Sattvamatamaham. I am the gambling of cheats, and of the splendid I am the splendor. I am victory, I am adventure, and I am the strength of the strong. Purport. There are many kinds of cheaters all over the universe. Of all cheating processes, gambling stands supreme and therefore represents Krishna. As the Supreme, Krishna can be more deceitful than any mere man. The unfortunate commentator who wants to cheat Krishna and the public by saying that there is something greater than Krishna is cheated by Krishna, and the commentator cannot understand Krishna after any length of time. If Krishna chooses to deceive a person, no one can surpass him in his deceit. His greatness is not simply one-sided, it is all-sided. Among the victorious, he is victory. He is the splendor of the splendid. Among the enterprising and industrious, he is the most enterprising and the most industrious. Among adventurers, he is the most adventurous. And among the strong, he is the strongest. When Krishna was present on earth, no one could surpass him in strength. Even in his childhood, he lifted Govardhan Hill. No one can surpass him in cheating, no one can surpass him in splendor, no one can surpass him in victory, no one can surpass him in enterprise, and no one can surpass him in strength. So, yeah, this word vivasaya, it means enterprise or adventure. So an enterprise, you can say, is a venture, isn't it? A venture capitalist, don't they have something like that? So that it's a play on words or a double meaning there. You know, Prabhupada gave us the other meaning of adventure, and that's the meaning that devotees really like. Oh, Krishna is adventure. Yes, let's go do traveling Sankirtan. So that's the strength of the strong, gambling of cheats. Okay. Vishinam Vasudevosmi Pandavanam Dhananjaya Muninam Apyaham Vyasa Kavinam Ushana Kavihi. Of the descendants of Vrishni, I am Vasudev, and of the Pandavas, I am Arjun. Of the sages, I am Vyas, and among great thinkers, I am Ushana. Purport. Krishna is the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Baladev is Krishna's immediate expansion. Both Lord Krishna and Baladev appeared as sons of Vasudev, so both of them may be called Vasudev. From another point of view, because Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, all the forms of Krishna that appear elsewhere are his expansions. Vasudev is Krishna's immediate expansion, so Vasudev is not different from Krishna. It is to be understood that the Vasudev referred to in this verse of the Bhagavad Gita is Baladev, or Balaram, because he is the original source of all incarnations, and thus he is the sole source of Vasudev. The immediate expansions of the Lord are called Svangsha, personal expansions, and there are also expansions called Vibhinnangsha, separated expansions. Amongst the sons of Pandu, Arjuna is famous as Dhananjaya, winner of wealth. He is the best of men and therefore represents Krishna. Among the Munis, or learned men conversant in Vedic knowledge, Vyas is the greatest because he explained Vedic knowledge in many different ways for the understanding of the common mass of people in this age of Kali. And Vyas is also known as an incarnation of Krishna. Therefore, Vyas also represents Krishna. Kavis are those who are capable of thinking thoroughly on any subject matter. Among the Kavis, Ushana, Shukracharya, was the spiritual master of the demons. He was an extremely intelligent and far-seeing politician. Thus, Shukracharya is another representative of the opulence of Krishna. So this one was kind of a startling fact to learn about Shukracharya, because in the Bhagavatam, Shukracharya is kind of, he's in the role of foolish so-called spiritual master of Bali Maharaj, who tells him, don't worship Vamana Dev. Remember that pastime? because he can tell this. He looks like a young, diminutive Brahmin, called the dwarf Brahmin. I've ever shared with you my whole problem with the dwarf thing, because in English, dwarf means basically a midget. But in American English, it means someone who, due to disease, is like this, And that's the last thing that we want to think of in relation to Vamana. Vamana was very beautiful, diminutive Brahman. Nothing. he wasn't ill at all. So, but dwarf, if it's used as an adjective, is okay, because dwarf just means diminutive. But sometimes that word dwarf strays away from the Brahman. It's just he's a dwarf. I always kind of cringe when I hear that. He's not a dwarf, not in American English. Anyway, but just Shukracharya, he was the spiritual master of the demons. Now Bali was a Daitya. He was a descendant of Diti. And as Prabhupada said in the verse back when he mentioned about Prahlad, of devotees I am Prahlad, he said, And amongst demons I am the devoted Prahlad. No. If you say amongst demons I am the Prahlad, that makes Prahlad a demon, even if he's devoted, So that has to change. I think that we're going to, because Prabhupada never said that. That's not that's not his translation. He says basically of the descendants of Diti, or of the Daityas, I am Prahlad. Another great descendant of Diti was Bali Maharaj. He was supposedly a demon, but then he was converted by Vamanadev. He offered him 3 steps of land. He said, I just want 3 steps of land. He went, I'll give you whatever you want. You want a planet? He said, no. If you're not satisfied with 3 steps of land, then you can't really be an actual Brahmin. He said, okay, if that's what you want, so be it. Om. And immediately he expanded this huge form, universal form. With 1 step, he covered the earth. With the 2nd step, he covered the rest of the universe and poked his toe through the covering of the universe, and a few drops of the causal ocean leaked in, washed the dust, whatever dust there was, pure dust from his feet, and that became the Ganges. But that's 2 steps. So they said, well, what am I going to do with my 3rd step? So Bali said, put it on my head. Put it on my head right here. So in that way he surrendered everything. He's the Acharya for Atma Nivedana, which means full. So he's a Daitya, Prahlad is a Daitya, but neither of them is demons, not anymore anyway, not for Bali. So it's going to say, among the descendants of Diti, among Daityas, I am the devoted Prahlad, Anyway, that's a little editing thing going on, but you need to fix these things. So of the sages, I am Vyas. Now Vyas, we associate with him every day. This is his writing. He's the one who wrote down this Bhagavad Gita. He got it from Sanjay. Sanjay is sitting there with Dhritarashtra, and Sanjay in Dhritarashtra's palace at home in Hastinapur, say. But by yogic TV, he's able to see and hear everything going on in the battlefield. Sanjay, by the blessing of Vyas, he was a disciple of Vyas. So all of it was, heard and remembered by Sanjay. Even Vyasadeva, he wrote it down. So he's the author. He wrote this Mahabharata, which this is 18 chapters. He also wrote the Bhagavatam, and then taught it to his son, who was Shukadev, who then spoke it to Maharaj Parikshit. It's come down to us that way. So and what to speak of the 4 Vedas, all the Puranas, very prolific, this Vyas. So he's an incarnation of Krishna, actually. And Ushana, that Ushana is another name for Shukracharya. So that one always puzzled me. Shukracharya was the spiritual master of Bali, who told him, don't offer him anything, So he rejected him. And so, but here is Shukracharya is given a prime place as an incarnation or an expansion of Krishna, of his opulence anyway. All right, let's proceed. Dando damayatam nitir asmi jigishitam maunam chaivasmi guyanam Jnanam Jnanapatamaham. Among all means of suppressing lawlessness, I am punishment. And of those who seek victory, I am morality. Of secret things, I am silence. And of the wise, I am the wisdom. So, this word nitir comes up again at the very last verse of the Bhagavad Gita. You may say, Yatta Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatta Partha Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shiv Jayo Nitir. One last line. Nitir. Tatra Shiv Jayo Bhutir, Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of mystics, of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality, nitir. So the names are very important. You remember the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj, little boy who wanted to get onto his father's lap, and his stepmother's son was on the lap, you know. And so she stopped Dhruva. She said, no, you can't get on the lap of your father until you take birth from my womb. So Dhruva was mortified. So he ran to his mother, and his stepmother told him, you have to pray to God and get his blessing and then take birth from my womb, then you can, like something like that. So Dhruva ran to his mother, what should I do, what should I do? So she said, actually, your stepmother had it right. You have to get God's help. Find God. So where's God? You know, Prabhupada kind of, it's not in the Bhagavad Gita, maybe in a commentary. So his mother said, apparently, well, I've heard that great sages and saints, they go to the forest to find God. Oh, so off Dhruva ran, you know. Dhruva means determined. It's like very, very steadfast. That's Dhruva. So he goes out, and he meets Narada Muni. Narada Muni says, you're too young, you know, go back home, I'll teach you yoga later. Well, if you can't help me, old sage, I'm going anyway. So, okay. So then he teaches him the system of meditation, austerity, and finally he sees Vishnu, and he gets the kingdom. His father was mortified, you know, I think he passed away. But anyway, the names. So the name of the stepmother was Suruchi, which means, we would say, hot, you know, in today's, very beautiful. And his mother was called Suniti, very virtue personified. Say Niti. One is Suruchi, one is Suniti. And Dhananjaya, you know, this name means conqueror of wealth. That's the name for Arjuna. Or what was another one? Anyway, there's so many names that describe the characteristics of the person, you know. Bali, even Bali. Bali is a gift, is a gift. So he gave the ultimate gift, himself, everything that he had. All right, we're making good progress. Let's see. 39. Yat chapi sarva bhutanam bijam tadaham arjuna natadasti vina yatsyan maya bhutam characharam. Furthermore, O Arjuna, I am the generating seed of all existences. Nothing moving or non-moving can exist without me. Moving or non-moving means mobile or immobile. The living entities, like the trees, they're immobile. They don't go anywhere. And we are mobile. We have the power of movement. Moving or non-moving, well, sometimes you can move trees. We replanted a tree up in the farm. It was moving. And sometimes we're very immobile, you know, non-moving. So moving and non-moving is not exactly mobile and immobile. Purport: everything has a cause, and that cause or seed of manifestation is Krishna. Without Krishna's potency, nothing can exist, either moving or non-moving. Therefore, he is called omnipotent. Whatever existence is not founded on the energy of Krishna is called Maya, that which is not. Now, that sentence has been, I think, adjusted, because everything in existence is founded on the energy of Krishna. Here, there, spiritual world, everything. So, I forget what the adjustment was, but it brought it around. Nantosti mama divyanam Vibhutinam parantapa Esatu deshatak prokto Vibhute vistaromaya. So notice each line, both lines have the word vibhuti in them, because this is the title of this chapter is Vibhuti Yoga, the yoga of understanding the opulences of the Lord. Vibhuti is opulence. Almighty conqueror of enemies, there is no end to my divine manifestations. What I have spoken to you is but a mere indication of my infinite opulences. Purport, as stated in the Vedic literature, although the opulences and energies of the Supreme are understood in various ways, there is no limit to such opulences. Therefore, not only the opulences and energies can be explained, simply a few examples are being described to Arjuna to pacify his inquisitiveness. Now, just one language observation. This word opulence as a noun, a single noun, you know, Krishna has the opulence of beauty and wealth and renunciation like that. This is an invention of Prabhupada. If you look up the word opulence, it simply means the amount of wealth that you have. How much opulence do you have? It's not usually not an opulence. But I guarantee that as time goes on, that will enter into the dictionary. Because all these books are out there and the devotees are speaking of opulences. And so there it goes. Now the next verse is a very famous one. There's those four essential verses, 8 to 11. And the two that Arjuna speaks after those, and this one also is very famous. That's about 6, 7 very famous verses here. And that line, Mrityu Sabharaschaha. Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam Srimad urjitameva va Tattadeva gachatvam Mamate jonksha sambhavam. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Purport, any glorious or beautiful existence should be understood to be but a fragmental manifestation of Krishna's opulence, whether it be in the spiritual or material world. Anything extraordinarily opulent should be considered to represent Krishna's opulence. So one thing to get from this is that in the material world, you can go a long time without ever seeing anything really glorious, or, you know, in other words, a lot of the world is just humdrum. You know, it's just ordinary. You know, there's nothing really that's very special about it. I mean, that you can notice. But of course, that's one of the reasons people come to the ocean. The ocean gives you an expanse. It's a tremendous manifestation. You know, so Krishna identifies with the ocean. So here he's saying that whatever is a demonstration of opulence is just from a spark of my splendor. You know, you should understand that the whole material world is amazing and powerful, you know, to us, and it's vast, and, you know, but it's just tiny. It's just one little universe in thousands and millions of universes. So this is what we should understand: his greatness, and the greatness has to be understood, but also the cultivation of the personal relationship with Krishna has to be cultivated, because that's where bhakti comes in. All you can have in relationship with these wonderful, you know, awe-inspiring, is this awe and reverence. But our bhakti, we don't want it to end there. You know, it's not that we want to go around being afraid of a vengeful God. You know, I'll just keep praying that I'll be forgiven for all my sins. I can't give them up, but I'll pray that I can get. No. If you actually develop your bhakti in chanting and so forth, you'll be able to give up the power, the attraction for these sinful activities. You know, first of all, the knowledge of the need for giving them up, then the prayer to get the power to give them up, and then the means of acquiring the power with the chanting. The whole process is very scientific. Because really, Goloka, Vrindavan, is where Krishna shows his most stunning and enthralling opulences, which doesn't have to do with, you know, big oceans and all of these different things. Just the beauty and the all attractiveness and the wonderful relationships he has with all his loving devotees there, and which it never ends. It's always a new adventure every day, and that's where we belong. So this helps us get there. So there's only one more verse, and I'm going to hold off on that one because Prabhupada sums up the the chapter, and it's quite a substantial purport. Which leaves us our usual 2 minutes for a little poem. Oh, you have a question? Okay, the mic. Don't you stay there.
Going back a few verses, it discusses gambling and how destructive gambling can be the spiritual condition.
Yeah.
How do we define that in the modern era where it seems like the line really blurs between perhaps, for example, somebody who works in finance or works in business or something like that? Like, how do we define what is sinful activity or destructive activity, and how?
Well, it's pretty pervasive. Yeah, I mean, the stock market is definitely a big gamble. You know, there may be more logic to it, you know, but I mean, ultimately, who can foresee some calamity that causes, or, you know, coming that causes the stock market to tank? You know, a big downward rush, and people lose millions and billions of dollars. So that's gambling. And gambling, you know, comes in different forms. It's like you'll so you get into association where everyone is, you know, smoking this or dropping this, you know, and you're taking a gamble. You take a gamble, oh, that this person is not, you know, selling me something that's going to kill me. And that's why we have a fentanyl crisis. You know, these poor kids, they want to have a good time, you know, and they take this pill, it's sold to them by their friend, who got it from a friend, who got it from a dealer. That's gambling. In fact, gambling, I think, is the most difficult of the four regular principles to follow strictly, because as soon as we allow ourselves to forget Krishna, we're voluntarily agreeing to forget Krishna because we want to think about something, you know, else. That's a gamble. That's a gamble that we won't die at that time and have to, you know, come back. And so the only thing that's a sure thing, this is, Krishna stresses this, and I always come back to this verse from the 2nd chapter. In this endeavor of Krishna consciousness, there's no loss or diminution. In any material endeavor, there is always complete loss, diminution and loss. So if we don't want to gamble at all, it means that we should give up trying to manipulate the material world so we can have some more comfort or pleasure there. Because ultimately, that will slow our development of Krishna consciousness and ensure that we take birth again. So the wonderful thing is that you have a backup. In other words, whatever you do, it's in your bank account of bhakti. But why not empty, you know, fill up the whole tank with bhakti and just get rid of any vestige of the material thing? So that's a different way of looking at gambling. But gambling basically means this, you know, this idea that, oh, I can make this bet, or I can do this, or I can invest in this, and then I'll make a killing. You know, I'll become wealthy and so forth. So it's simply a variety. It's a strong variety of material infatuation, and it's one of the four regular principles: to give up gambling of all forms. So that's, you know, I don't know if you have your, what is it, 401k? That's supposed to be, but you know, sometimes, of course, you have to live in this world, but we should minimize any speculative investment that we think, you know, we will make so much money out of it, because there's so many people ready to cheat you, you know, and it's not worth it. So anyway, we're running out of time. They're going to blow that conch or do something to open the curtains. Sorry, Prabhu. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.